You're watching Deer and Deer Hunting TV, where the deer are always the stars of the show.
He came back. It's a nice 10-point young deer though. Like 2 years from now he'll be looking real good. You know, we were thinking, man, it's interesting. We didn't see more, and all of a sudden, bang, there he came right out of the corner. You know, hunting around the moon phase is a bit controversial. Some people believe that there's different movement for deer depending on the amount of light at night and the gravitational pull, and others think it's a bunch of hocus pocus that doesn't mean too much.
Does the moon influence deer activity? I would say yes. What we find is that there's several different aspects of lunar cycles that influence deer activity. One is actually the cycle. Is it a full moon? Is it a half moon? Is it an emerging moon, a waning crescent? What is the different phases of the moon? But the other aspect that influences deer activity is the position of the moon. Is it the moon overhead, moon underfoot, moon rise, moon set? Those are the four different stages or positions of the moon that potentially influence deer activity, and those could occur during any time of the day. We believe that there's some impact on white-tailed deer due to the gravitational pull of the moon. It's not well understood how this happens, but there are some data that show that these positions of the moon do influence deer activity. We believe that the phase of the moon, whether it's a full moon, not a full moon, that sort of thing, probably influences deer activity due to its impact on brightness levels at night.
Welcome to Deer and Deer Hunting, practical and comprehensive information for whitetail deer hunters, where the whitetail is always the star of the show. Now, here's Charlie Alsheimer.
Welcome to a brand new segment of Deer and Deer Hunting TV. I'm your host, Charlie Alsheimer. For the last 10 years, Vermont wildlife biologist Wayne Laresh and I have researched how certain deer behaviors coincide with lunar phases, specifically in areas north of the 35th latitude. This research has allowed us to predict with incredible accuracy the exact dates when the rut's seeking, chasing, and breeding behaviors will be greatest. Today we'll explain how the moon affects deer activity and how you can use this information to become a better deer hunter.
Wow, I can't believe it's been almost 20 years since Charlie Alsheimer brought this to light in a new modern format on Deer and Deer Hunting television. Charlie was really ahead of his time when it came to this as far as popularizing it among modern hunters. And what we know through Charlie's research is that there is an influence on the moon and deer activity during hunting season. Now, can we pinpoint this through scientific research? No, and that's where people criticize it. One of the problems was people didn't really read Charlie's research. They didn't read his articles. They didn't fully comprehend what he was trying to say. He wasn't trying to say that the moon's light is what caused deer activity. It was that gravitational pull. And if you look at studies and also hunter observations, especially people who really documented every single hour that they hunted, what they found is that especially during the pre-rut and the rut, there was a distinct correlation between the full moon, which would have been the second full moon after the autumnal equinox, and buck activity during the day. And the other thing that people have realized, hunters, through observational research, is that the correlation between moonlight and buck activity actually showed greater buck activity during days with more moonlight.
Deer and Deer Hunting TV is brought to you by
There we go. You know, Hunting around the moon phase is a bit controversial. Some people believe that there's different movement for deer depending on the amount of light at night and the gravitational pull, and others think it's a bunch of hocus pocus that doesn't mean too much. But if you've kept a journal as a hunter over the years, you'll notice that you've had a lot different sightings during a full moon than you do when you're dealing with a quarter moon or a third of a moon. Those deer move a lot at night, and then we see movement midday. You know, I often say if you're spending lots of money and you're booking a hunt or going somewhere special and you've saved your holidays, always pay attention to the moon phase and make sure you're going where there's some peak activity and you know that wildlife is going to be active during the daytime hours, because it does make a big difference. And I do watch it, and I look at the information on apps like HuntStand to tell you when the minor and major movements are for wildlife, and I find that they're extremely accurate.
Okay, this is kind of the more consistent target buck, is what we were thinking. And
Got a lot more weight.
I will say he's probably in that 4.5 to 5.5 year old class.
So they come in at all trails. If you look at our scenario, we're on a bit of a rise here so that we have cover in front of the blind. It's not so tall that it'll impede our shooting anywhere. We have cover behind us and beside us so that we're not skylined. We're completely broken up and blended in. The prevailing winds come this way. This rise goes further up behind us. Anyone that hunts deer a lot knows they're not going to come off the top of the ridge. They're going to come out of the low spots, out of the thick timber. This is the perfect spot for this location to set up, stay concealed, keep the wind in our favor, and never be seen by a deer. Our first sit in the blind, we got to see lots of action. We had a nice young 10-point deer come in, and a spiker, little maybe 2 points on one side, came out of the bush about 100 yards away, and he immediately threw his ears back, postured. He walked downwind to get close to that other buck, even though it was small, raked his antlers and became very threatening. So, you know, the younger buck was very submissive, and they sparred a little bit, but it was interesting just to see the scenario play out in terms of those hormone levels going up for those bucks and how they respond. You know, they see another deer and instantly they identify it as a doe or another buck and potential competition, and it's just interesting to watch them interact. You know, the moon phase definitely played a role in our hunt. When we got here, everyone said, man, last week those deer were out. We saw them during the day. They were running across the roads. You know, we saw deer everywhere. And that's pretty typical for like a quarter moon or a half moon. Those deer are pretty active during the daytime. When we got here, it's like things have really slowed up. We were down to about the last 20 minutes of legal light, and we had a deer sort of step out of nowhere, came up out of the brush, and all of a sudden he was out in the meadow, the clearing that we had in front of us, and you could tell right away that it was a big mature deer. It was an interesting day. Like that.
Congratulations.
Thanks. The buck we saw run out of here, he came back. It's a nice 10-point young deer though. Like 2 years from now, he'll be looking real good. You know, we were thinking, man, it's interesting. We didn't see more, and all of a sudden, bang! There he came right out of the corner. And you could tell instantly the body is just like twice the size of the others. He's darker. You know, look at the antlers. It's like, man, that's a mature set of antlers. So, yep, we got her done.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Sweet spot.
Yes.
It's a nice mature Texas deer. You could sure see it in his body. Oh yeah, and look at that. Dark, lots of character. That's a beautiful deer. Beautiful. You grow some nice deer here, Colby. Very nice. Yeah, it's like really, he's got some fat on him. There's no doubt about it. That's where the second shot went. It was an anchor shot. Yep. Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. Look at that. With fading light and an increasingly growing moon, we waited for that deer to give us the perfect shot opportunity, and that's always critical to me is, especially in this country with this really heavy brush and the amount of rattlesnakes and everything else they have, I wasn't really keen on tracking, even if we had to, we would have got it done, but we were just thrilled to have it happen on the first night, and who knows, maybe I'll pay next time and have to work for 10 days to see the next shooter buck, but that's deer hunting. When opportunity knocks, don't turn it down.
You're watching Deer and Deer Hunting TV, where the deer are always the stars of the show.
You know, I could live for another month of days like this. Spring is the time I love to get stuff done, and I like to census my deer herd when I'm doing it as well. What I'm doing here is I'm censusing a food plot, and you would think there's nothing in this food plot. I had brassicas in here last fall, it's all eaten off. Not true, there's a lot of forbs, fancy word for weeds, growing up in this plot, and the deer have already been nailing it this spring. So what I've done here is I have my camera. This is the new Cuddyback Trax camera. This is a cool camera. It's a cell camera that you can have a limited plan of $5 a month only, or an unlimited plan for $13 a month. It sends the photos to my phone, super easy to set up. I basically just scan the QR code on the camera, I'm good to go. The nice thing about this camera, it is AT&T and Verizon interchangeable, but the other thing about it is you don't have to have that carrier to get the images sent to your phone. So the beauty of this system here, this solar panel, I leave this solar panel out here year round, never have to change the batteries, never have to pull a card, I never have to go in the woods to check it. So it's perfect for scouting those buck bedding areas where you don't want to have a lot of pressure, especially as you get closer to hunting season. But this thing runs off of ambient light, so I could be in the woods with this camera. The only reason I'm not is because the deer are just tearing this up and I want to see what I've got. Bucks are already starting to grow. Very cool system that I've got set up here. I can move it around. It's got the double paddle receivers to get a good signal, but basically set it and forget it, and you're gonna get pictures sent right to your phone. missed him. You know, whether you're crossbow hunting or bow hunting, a lot of snap decisions come into play. Snap decisions, when we think about them when we're bow hunting, normally it's like whether it's a buck you want to shoot or not, or whether it's a doe you want to shoot or not. That is a snap decision that you have to make. But the bigger ones for me are when that moment of truth arrives and preparing for it before it happens. Because like early season hunting like I'm doing right now, hunting over a water source, the snap decisions for me are when those deer come in, they're usually really on high alert. It could be a food source, it could be a food plot, or it could be a feeder, however you're hunting. You have to make a snap decision on, is that deer standing in the right position for you to shoot? And a lot of times things happen so fast, we think they might be, but they're not. Another snap decision that comes into play is your actual shooting position. And for me, this is a tough one because you get caught up in the heat of the moment, you get very excited, and you forget a lot of things. That's why I've been practicing today. I'm leaning out this window, trying to practice those shots that aren't perfect. Let's face it, when we're practicing with our bows, we're normally standing up in the backyard and shooting, but when it comes time to sit down, everything changes. And we think we're gonna get that shot right out here in front of us, and we practice that. But what about the shot that's over here, or the shot that's over here? With a crossbow, it's even more difficult. When you're leaning and turning and try to crouch out a window, maybe you're on one knee. That happens to me a lot, especially when we're filming. I have to position myself kind of awkwardly, and it's a snap decision that I'm gonna shoot that way. Things change, your aiming point changes, and your point of impact on your arrows change. So all these little snap decisions, think of them and try to come up with a pattern. You can't duplicate all of them. Practice them. You might not be able to practice perfectly, but the more you can practice, the better prepared you're going to be to make the shot when it counts.